Here's the point. You don't know because the victim herself, who is now 30 plus years old, petitioned to have that man pardoned. That is the letter.
So you're okay with
what I'm okay with is telling the truth at this table and saying things that you don't know because you didn't research that. You just took the headline of that and tried to say something.
But I think
and
really,
you try to throw the rapist in to cover the fact that this man is
to the Trump administration.
So Caroline, hold on a second, Isaiah. As much as throwing in these other examples.
Caroline, there is actually a reason why.
This is becoming a story that we've seen far too many times, and sadly, another family is now grieving because of it. In this clip, we see a heated debate unfold after another person dies during an ICE operation. But what really caught my attention wasn't just the tragedy itself. It was the reaction from MAGA commentator Caroline Sunshine. As the discussion unfolds, Caroline doubles down on her position in a way that Charles Blow, Isaiah Martin, and Abby Phillip simply refuse to let slide. The exchange quickly becomes one of the most tense moments on CNN NewsNight, with the panel clashing over immigration, accountability, and the human cost of these operations. Now, if you're new here, I'm Bradley Hostin, and this is The Bradley Hostin Show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news commentaries. I need you guys to stick with me until the very end, because after we watch this clip, I want to explain why I think this debate goes far beyond politics and why the reaction from some people on this panel left me genuinely speechless. As usual, let's watch the clip, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts afterwards.
There are some new developments in a story that has been sparking outrage in Houston and really all across the United States. Tonight, we are learning that witnesses are now disputing key parts of the government's version of events that led to a deadly ICE shooting this week. DHS had previously said that ICE officers opened fire in self-defense after a 52-year-old, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, rammed their vehicles with his van. Now, the agency also said that he tried to run over an ICE officer, but there were 3 other men who were inside of the car, and they say that through their attorney that account is a lie. In a written statement shared with the Washington Post, one witness said it's impossible that officers were going to get run over because there were no officers in front of or behind the vehicle. They were on the sides. The witnesses also said that it was actually ICE who rammed their vehicles into the work van, and that Salgado Araujo did not use his vehicle to hit the law enforcement cars. In another statement, a second witness said that as the van slowed down, an officer ran toward them from the side and then started firing from the passenger side of the vehicle, hitting the victim in the abdomen. Now, so far, ICE has not commented on these claims. The witness's attorney is accusing them of a cover-up.
After speaking with these men, I have no doubt that what they're saying is the truth. I know that the agency is going to try to cover it up. This is not the first time that it happens. This has become a pattern.
We're also learning tonight that officials have now begun the process of releasing the body to his family days after the incident. That's according to their attorney. Salgado's Araujo's son says it was ICE that took his father to the hospital where he was not identified despite having identification on him. There also is new surveillance video of the moment that Salgado Araujo's white van came to a stop after ICE shot him. You can see there this black unmarked car trailing the van before it briefly disappears. When it comes back into the frame, it slows to a stop, but what happens in those final moments is unclear as of right now. Now, before we open it up to the table here, we want to invite you at home to join this debate. You can go to cnn.com/Abby, weigh in there. We'll get to some of your comments throughout the show. This is, Charles, another moment that is capturing, I think, a lot of attention, and for good reason, because it highlights a number of things, perhaps the principal of which is how trustworthy is ICE as an agency, both to tell the truth about what happened or to even investigate what happened in this incident.
And one of the biggest kind of problems here is that there is no body cam on these officers, even though we've been told for months that they were supposed to get body cam. Kristi Noem, when she was in charge of DHS, started the promise that they were going to start to supply all of the agents of ICE with body cam. during the government shutdown, there were proposals flying all around, including from Mullins, who is now DHS Secretary. He had a bipartisan proposal to expand body cams. The White House sent a note to Collins and another senator saying that they were in favor of expanding body cams. On April 30th, the Congress, in a bipartisan manner, passed the bill that provided $20 million for body cams. Mullen got the job, but he didn't do the job. And so now here we are again with an incident where someone is dead and we have no body cam, and now we have to rely on competing witness accounts. That is a complete failure of this DHS, all of whom kept promising us that they were going to get these body cams on these ICE agents.
I also wonder why they can't even tell us quite simply what happened. I mean, they've said that the vehicle rammed the ICE vehicle. They should be able to provide photographic evidence of that. They should be able to tell us what direction the officer shot into the vehicle, what happened in that lead up. Why all the silence around this?
I think it takes time to conduct a proper investigation. Police shootings, unfortunately, happen from time to time. More often than not, the shootings are justified. Occasionally, they're not. And that's why there does need to be, and I fully support what you're saying, there should be transparency, there should be accountability. But to dissect a little bit what Charles said, he's right. It was the Trump administration, not the Biden administration, in February of 2025 that put a directive out that said all ICE officers should have body cams. And as Charles pointed out, it was thanks to constant Democratic shutdowns that delayed that process. Now you finally have in April of 2026, the government actually funds $20 million.
Are you suggesting?
The funding for body cameras, that $20 million came in the big, beautiful bill. That was last year. So they had almost a full year to roll this out. They did not do it. Right. I don't know why you would blame the government shutdown when ICE was operating as normal during the government shutdown. The Trump administration told us that. They have been operating. They were a fully funded agency. ICE was not impacted by the government shutdown. So why would that stop?
As I understand it, and as they say, this funding was tied to portions of the bill that were shut down by the government. That's
no. That's not how government funding works.
Charles just said that in April 2026, they had the money to do this. No one believes that
the $20 million
government services can be done in 3 months.
The $20 million that was given by Congress to do this was given last year. That money was unaffected by the government shutdown. The government shutdown pertained to new money that they wanted allocated for ICE and for DHS. Right. So I don't, I get that that's a political talking point, but it does not explain that part of it. I also just want to, let me play Tom Homan, because I think there's two parts of this that are interesting to me. One, I think it's the acknowledgement of what happened in Minnesota earlier this year. And then the second thing is that he's asking for grace from the American people to conduct this investigation. And I think that that's what's in short supply. Listen.
We're winning the public back because we're putting the truth out there. We're releasing videos. We're talking about these investigations. So when this investigation comes out, we'll see where it lies. When I went to Minnesota to fix that mess, when President Trump sent me there, the first thing I did is bring more internal affairs officers in there and run down all the allegations. And unfortunately, a couple of agents are in trouble now. But we will do the right thing. Based on the findings of the investigation, we'll hold our people accountable. You got my word on that.
So, first of all, I'll give him credit for calling Minnesota a mess, because I think that's really what it was for the administration. But Alex Preddy and Renee Good, there have been no disciplinary actions as a result of those two incidents. But what he's talking about is that there actually was an incident in which immigration enforcement agents lied about an interaction that they had with an immigrant. And they were only really caught because the immigrant's family had some of it on video, and they said that their account was not true.
Absolutely. And I think that's the root of the problem. The problem is that they just outright lied. Do we know anything today about the murders of Alex Preddy and Renee Good? No, it's been multiple months since that. And so ultimately, I think that this is an alarming trend, that yes, it is true that ICE continues to do these things because ultimately they don't really see any accountability because it's been months. And so ultimately, when we understand the immigration policy as a whole, only 5% of the people that ICE is deporting are violent convicted criminals. And what does that mean? It means that they're going after people like Lorenzo. They're spending more time focusing on going after people like Lorenzo instead of actual gang members inside of our country. What's ridiculous is the fact that Lorenzo woke up at 5:54 in the morning to go to work in America and ultimately did not come home because ICE allegedly had the wrong guy. It's absurd. And I think that what we need in this country is an understanding that this immigration policy is not working. We need to go make sure we can do something different. And I think put an end to this endless funding.
So I understand how you have that perspective because ICE makes thousands of arrests every week. Just this past week in Virginia, ICE arrested an illegal immigrant who allegedly kidnapped and raped a woman. We spent all week long on cable news talking about rape allegations all week long, so much so that a guy had to drop out of the Senate primary that he won because of rape allegations. But now we're not talking about the rape allegations against an illegal immigrant that ICE successfully detained, because we shouldn't want anybody who's allegedly committed rape to be in our communities.
That's only 5% of what you guys are doing right now.
Now, in Minnesota, we have Tim Walz just pardoned an illegal immigrant who was convicted of raping a child. Tim Walz looked at that guy and said,
really important.
yeah, I'm going to pardon him. He should stay in the U.S. And I said, nope, we're taking him out. My point is, what that has to do with it,
what does that have to
do with it is I
Caroline, what does that have to do with this man in Texas who everyone acknowledges doesn't have a criminal record?
We only focus on this ICE story. Why don't we focus on the others? And then what happens is a lot of Americans walk away with a warped perception of the mission that ICE does, and it makes the deportations even more dangerous to carry out. Because people then do what this gentleman did, which was he did not comply.
Can we just say this?
He did not comply with the officer's orders, and he rammed his vehicle.
Well, you don't know that. You don't know. You have. Did you see that? You have no idea that that's true.
But we need to cover all of the work.
You're taking DHS's word, and she has no idea that that's true. She also wants to throw in this the child who was raped. That is I will finish just like I let you finish. I will finish just like I let you finish. Part of that pardon package. One thing that he did you know the letters that were part of that pardon package?
I know he pardoned a child rapist, and I am not okay with that.
So you don't know. I'm going to finish. You don't know because the victim herself, who is now 30 plus years old, petitioned to have that man pardoned. That is the letter.
So you're okay with it?
What I'm okay with is telling the truth at this table and saying things that you don't know because you didn't research that. You just took the headline of that and tried to say something.
But I think what's really and
you try
he is no longer going to be in our country.
To cover the fact that this man is dead.
Thanks to the Trump administration.
So Caroline, hold on a second, Isaiah.
As much as throwing in these other examples.
Caroline, there is actually a reason why people focus on the killings of people who committed no crime by the government. It's because if you were gunned down outside and it was an accident, they were looking for someone else and they killed you, you would want people to be outraged by that too, because when the government uses force against you, that is a different thing than a criminal killing someone who can be held accountable. So I mean, it's not to discount look, there are a lot of violent people in this country, and there is almost no opposition to deporting those violent people. Right. But we're asking a question about a man who had no criminal record, who wasn't even the target of this stop. And it seems, based on everything that's been reported, they got the whole thing wrong. It was the wrong van. Nobody in the van was being targeted. Nobody in the van was who they were looking for, and one person is dead. So just put aside the politics for a second. I mean, do you understand why that is so problematic?
Yeah, because this is what I'm saying, though, is that it's not equal outrage. And the reason the American people are so animated about the issue of immigration generally is because they feel like all of ICE's missteps get highlighted, but none of the good work. And we always know the names of people who've been killed by ICE, but we never know the names of Americans who've been killed by illegal immigrants.
5% of the people you guys
in the country illegally. It doesn't matter if he's committed additional crimes by being here. He was in the country unlawfully, and he did not comply with the orders of the law enforcement.
Every instance of a crime that's being committed, every instance of a crime being committed,
where people are too fearful of ICE because of all the negative press they've received.
I don't know if think this is just about a media environment. I think it's also just based on the fact that, as you pointed out, there's been a massive surge of ICE interactions with people. And there's actually far less than your local police department. There's a lot less accountability. And that's really problematic. One of the interesting.
How do you know that fact?
Well, because let me just give you.
I'm just saying, in this incident, you have a
Joe,
district attorney.
You asked me a question. Let me answer it. Let me give you a reason why I would say there's less accountability. ICE agents go around masked regularly. They don't carry body cameras. They don't even have cameras on their vehicles. None of these vehicles that were involved in this chase carried cameras. They have resisted even identifying themselves and their agency when they interact with people in these kinds of interactions. Police departments, as you know, Joe, have very strict policies about traffic stops and about the use of force when it comes to using a weapon against a moving vehicle. And one of the things that we've seen repeatedly from ICE is that they have used weapons against the drivers of moving vehicles in a way that contradicts the best practices for law enforcement. So those are all the reasons I'm saying there's less accountability. There appears to be less training because a lot of these people are coming on the job in a hurried manner.
A couple things. ICE arrests with about 60,000 people per month. Overwhelmingly, those don't result in any violence. They don't result in any shooting. They don't result in any death. When there is a shooting, when there is the death, whether it's justified or not, there ought to be an investigation.
Joe, can I ask you a question?
Let me finish. These officers.
Where's the investigation into the killings of Alex Preddy and
These
Renee
officers
Good?
are under
Is there even a report about what happened to
DA,
Americans?
of the
Can you give us
Attorney
any
General
example of anyone being held
Attorney General of the
accountable
State of
by
Texas,
ICE?
of the Inspector General of ICE and HHS. Right? So there should be an investigation. There will be an investigation. No Republican is out there saying we shouldn't investigate what happened.
Joe,
no Republican is out there saying, I hope
let me
that
just
these
play.
situations
This is
escalate.
the mayor.
And by the way, I just checked. You fact-checked me before. The $20 billion was from April of this year. So no one's procuring a contract for body cameras for all officers in 3 months. They got 60% or so of the field offices equipped with body cameras by this date today. That's pretty good in a few months. It's not great. Obviously, no one predicted that this incident would have happened. But it is the Trump administration putting body cameras on the bodies of ICE officers. It wasn't the Biden administration.
The Biden administration didn't deploy massive amounts of ICE agents. And look,
there was no shootings in the Biden administration.
They did it because they were letting 10 million illegal immigrants into the country.
I didn't actually say that. I just said that the number of people that Trump has put on the streets requires more.
But we had an election.
Oversight,
we
right?
Talked about
Don't you
immigration
think?
in the election. We won the election.
And now you guys are unpopular on that very same
what the
position.
mayor of Houston has said.
Because you guys are killing people on the streets of America.
Hold on a second,
That's why you're
Isaiah
unpopular.
and Joe. Let me play what the mayor of Houston said about the status of the investigation. Local officials have said that they from the moment this happened, have been trying to run their own investigation, and here's what they've been experiencing.
The FBI has all the evidence that would normally go in to an HPD or other law enforcement agency's investigation. They have the evidence. In this instance, the van, the passengers, the deceased, and they're tightly controlling it.
Why, Caroline? Why are they tightly controlling it?
Well, that's his narrative. I mean, you also have to take into the account of the ICE officers. I mean, they have facts too. So like the facts are going to play out. Hey,
they're following the law.
We live in a country where you are innocent until proven guilty.
They're following the law with police protocols when it's a federal law
that come out
enforcement
there.
investigation. They're following the law. It's a shooting involving a federal law enforcement officer. The mayor did not say ICE and HHS are not following the law. They're saying they're following it.
According to who?
You've never been an ICE officer. You've never.
Have you been one? Have you been one?
But I
have you even been to the border?
Clearly,
you understand it? Really? Where? What part?
McAllen, Texas.
I'm from Texas.
Have you been to the border?
Absolutely.
Were you there when the 10 million were coming across and it was wide open under Joe Biden?
You're
Because
lying.
I was.
What I do know is that you guys
2021 to 2024, fact check me. And here's the thing. It is a lot easier to import 10 million people into your country than it is to deport them. It is a lot easier for 10 million people to come into your country than it is to deport them.
No, what I
And that's
am
what
talking
these ICE
about.
officers have been tasked with, and they're doing a damn good job.
And then you can respond.
What I'm saying is that in every instance in which they want to talk about an issue of crime, 5%, that's the number of people that are convicted of violent crimes that ICE is actually deporting. That's reality. So 95% of the people they're deporting are not people like
But I'm
that.
okay
So you
with
can go and
deporting
cheerlead
people
all
who are-
these
They're
things
all
as much
people
as you
who are
want.
people
The
who are
reality is
convicted
that
of
you guys
nonviolence.
are not
Here,
focused
If
on
you
there,
were
that.
stealing
here.
someone's
Stuff in the
deed,
fact
if
that
you
you
were
went to
robbing
Florida for 2
someone, I'm
years.
okay with you getting
was at
deported.
the
That's fine with me.
All right.
That's a great thing. I support it 100%.
All
It
right.
doesn't have to be just violent criminals who get deported.
All right,
I
we're
think
gonna-
all criminals should get
We're
deported.
gonna leave it there. Next for us, breaking news from.
So let me give you guys my thoughts, because there was a lot going on in that debate. The first thing that stood out to me was Caroline Sunshine's claim about Tim Walz. I'm actually glad Charles Blow stepped in and corrected the record, because context matters. If you're simply going to tell people Tim Walz pardoned a rapist and then leave it there, of course people are going to be outraged. But if there's additional context, such as the victim herself petitioning for that pardon, I think that's an incredibly important piece of information. Whether people ultimately agree with the decision or not, they deserve the full story, not just the headline. And that's one of my biggest frustrations with modern politics. Too often, people don't tell the whole story. They tell the version of the story that best fits the narrative they want to push. That's exactly why I appreciated Charles Blow pushing back. The second point I want to make is about the statistic Isaiah Martin brought up. To me, that was one of the most important moments in the entire segment. If only a small percentage of the people being detained are actually violent criminals, then it naturally raises questions about the broader priorities of these operations. That's a conversation worth having, because if politicians keep telling the public these policies are primarily about removing dangerous criminals, then people are going to compare that message with the actual numbers and ask whether those two things line up. That's a fair question. Now, as for Caroline Sunshine, this is what frustrates me about her. Every now and then she'll make a point that I think is worth considering, but far too often she undermines her own credibility by making claims that either lack important context or simply don't hold up when someone challenges them. And that's exactly why fact-checking matters. You can't just throw out a claim and hope nobody checks it. You have to be prepared for someone like Charles Blow to come back with the missing facts. At the end of the day, these conversations are too important to be driven by half-truths or political talking points. People deserve the full picture so they can make up their own minds. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news commentaries. I'll see you guys in the next one.